Welcome to the third recording of Let's Talk About WAGs. In this recording, I am going to further elaborate on the hidden part of ourselves and its contribution to misunderstanding. Now, this is a diagram from last recording. In that recording, I expressed the hidden part of ourselves as a processing box and how we get information by the senses and then we analyze it before we get a judgment and then propels us to a certain action. Now, several factors affect this processing box and it differs between different people. Now, what I want to discuss today is basically emotions, how emotions are how we express emotions and how it's different between people and how we perceive other people's emotions, and of course how we perceive it and analyze it affects our judgment or misjudgment and the action that comes after that. Now, our WAGs affect how we express our emotions. Our WAGs, as we said before, it's the observable part of ourselves. It's our words, action, gestures. It's our behavioral preferences. For example, how I express happiness might be different than somebody else how they express happiness, especially if they have different WAGs. Now, what the contribution of WAGs to misunderstanding lies when I expect others who have different WAGs to express happiness the same way I express it, or expect others to express anger the same way I express it. And then when I don't see that, I don't see them expressing happiness the same way I'm expressing, then that doesn't register with me that they are happy. And then I go into misjudging them, that they're not happy with what I did and so on, and then goes into a negative action. So it's very important to understand the different kind of WAGs, and this is what these next recordings are going to be about, is to understand these different WAGs. And so when I see happiness expressed through WAGs that are different than mine, then I understand that they are happy, although they're not doing it the same way I do it, but they are still happy. And then that saves this interaction or this relationship from misunderstanding. Now, I want to give an example about differences in WAGs, how people express emotions. For example, this is a story about Ali. Ali came running into the room looking very pleased with his report card in his hand and said, "Look at this, Dad, I got an A in social studies and I worked so hard for it." His dad slowly looked up from under his newspaper, smiled, took the report card, looked at it and said, "Great, an A is very good. But what about the C in English and the E in math?" He further added, "Doesn't it feel good to get an A? It will feel even better if you get all A's." Now let's compare the WAGs of Ali's dad to the WAGs of another person. This is Max's dad now. The same thing, Max came running into the room looking very pleased with his report card, and he said, "Look at this, Dad, I got an A in social studies and I worked so hard for it." Now, what did Max's dad do? His dad quickly snatched the paper from his son's hand, looked at it and cried out, "Wow, this is excellent, an A in social studies. What did your teacher say? He must have been very happy with you." He then added, "A C, no problem. You are smart, like your father. I'm sure that next term it will be an A. Don't worry, I'll help you." So if we compare both dads, WAGs are different. And so because their WAGs are different, their behavioral preferences are different, so they express happiness in a different way. And so we can see Ali's dad, he slowly looked up, smiled, "Great, it's an A, it's very good." And then he started pointing out how his child can improve. While Max's dad, he jumped up and down. "Wow, this is excellent." He snatched the paper. "You must be very happy with you, the teacher. You're very smart," and so on. Now, can we say that Max's dad loves his son more than Ali's dad loves Ali? We can't say that. we can just say they have different ways of expressing happiness. Now, if the children know that, then that is not a problem. I remember my daughter, she was maybe 3 or 4, and she came talk to me, why when I draw a picture and I show it to you, you say it's very nice, I really like it, and when I show it to Dad, he jumps up and down. And then when I explained to her that we both love her and we just have different ways of expressing our happiness, she was fine with it. And so she wasn't disappointed when I just give her that small statement. And so there's nothing wrong with expressing happiness in different ways. It's just that the person that you are dealing with has to understand that, so that he doesn't fall into misunderstanding, so that my daughter doesn't think I don't love her enough, especially with children. Now, how do we perceive other people's emotions? We talked about how we express and how we also evaluate or can fall into misunderstanding because people don't express emotions the way we expect them to. Now, how do we read people's faces? How do we read emotions? This is a very nice site by Berkeley. So if you go on that website and you take the quiz, there are about 20 pictures there with different facial expressions, and then you try to guess. They give you 3 or 4 guesses, and you guess which emotion is being expressed, and then you push the button and they give you the right answer, and you compare to what you to your guess, and then they show you exactly which muscles in the face are moving how in order to express that emotion. And Paul Ekman is a very good I think psychologist who did a lot of this work, and I have him as a reference at the end, and I also have this site at the end. Now, okay, I want to show you 3 expressions and see if you guess them properly. Now, this is fear. This is a pretty easy one. This is anger. This is a bit confusing. And this is embarrassment. Now, you can go to that site and check how good you are in recognizing emotions. Now, scientists have found that people differ. It's, in our makeup, in the way our brain works, we differ in our ability to recognize emotions, the proper emotions. Okay, and but it is something that can change. We can pick up skills that help us to recognize faces or recognize emotions better. If you go to that site and if you look at Paul Ekman's book, they give you hints about which muscles in the eye, in the mouth, in the corner of the mouth, the lips, and so on, that it has to move in which direction. It's a signature for which emotion. And so if you are bad at recognizing people's emotions, you can go through that guide, and you can pick up skills to improve in recognizing emotions. On another scale, each one of us, actually, as we're growing up, our ability to recognize the emotions differ. They have found, and this is, you can find it in one of the references that I put at the back, Blame My Brain by Morgan. They have found that teenagers are bad at recognizing emotions. So if you are a mother listening to this tape and you think, well, my child never, I'm so upset, and he still keeps doing what he's doing. He can't see my face that I'm angry. Some teenagers, yes, they don't see the face. They don't recognize that emotion as being angry or annoyed. And scientists found that teenagers use a different part of the brain to recognize emotions, a part that is different than what adults use when they look at faces and to recognize emotions. And boys are worse than girls in recognizing emotions. So we have to keep that in mind when we're dealing with teenagers. I remember my daughter used to play with a boy, a very nice boy, but he had a problem. He couldn't recognize emotions. So if the boy he's playing with is annoyed, he cannot see that the boy is annoyed, and he keeps doing what he's doing, and he gets into trouble. And so the best way was for him to play with people who can verbally express their emotions. I don't like this. I don't like what you're doing. I'm upset, and so on. So that's a good thing to also keep in mind, is some people don't recognize emotions. Now, the other way around, we could be putting out emotions that are read differently. For example, my sister used to tell me, "Why do you think this and this and this of me?" I said, "But I don't. I never did." And she said, "But your face says it." And so I said, "Okay, well, whenever, since I really don't think that way of you, whenever you see that face, tell me, and I will check what emotion or what thought I have in my head that is being put out in a way that you are reading it this way." And so she used to then tell me, "Okay, now you have that face. Now you have that face." And I would quickly check the emotion and the thought. And it had the thought, it's the same thought, but it had nothing to do with the conclusion that she came to. And I explained to her, "No, actually, every time you tell me I have that face, I am thinking this way. I'm trying to connect information. I am trying, but apparently the face I'm giving is being misread." And so it could be just her, she's reading my face wrong, but it also could be that I should be careful. There'll be other people who are going to read my face in that way too. And so I was trying from that moment on, in my interactions, whenever I have that thought, I'll be careful of the face that I'm making, or I'll try to smile after that, or do something that might not give the wrong impression. And so also Paul Ekman says something else. He says that you might be able to detect an emotion when you're dealing with somebody, and this is very important, that if I'm looking at somebody like my sister was, you might detect an emotion, but you have no clue that emotion, what brought it about. Okay, I might be talking and then somebody might look sad or angry or something, or some change in his muscles that he's expressing an emotion. We really cannot say that emotional expression was related to what I am saying. Like I said in my previous recordings, it could be something is hurting him, something in his body. It could be he just remembered something. It could be I touched a nerve of a previous experience and he just remembered it. And so even if I'm reading the face correctly, I have to be careful that it may not be with what I am saying or about my interaction. It might be related to something in his past. And so I should not jump into a conclusion and then into a negative action. So now if you want to summarize what we have learned, people differ in the way they express emotions. Remember Ali and Max's fathers. And our WAGs, the way our behavior preferences actually affect how we express our emotions, and the expectations, how we expect other people to express the same emotion. And this is what puts us in trouble, because then we misinterpret their emotions. And as we said, people differ in their ability to read faces. So add to your facial expression some words or some other body language that a person can read well. And also we can learn, if we're not good at reading faces, we can learn by going to that site and to that book how to improve our skill in reading emotions. Now we also might be putting out emotions that are read wrong by others. So we have to be careful with that. We have to have this sensitivity that when we are in an interaction, continuously looking for feedback, how that person is interacting with us. And when they start to interact in a negative way, maybe we should explain ourselves better. And of course, not every emotion will be read correctly, or even if we read them correctly from people's faces, remember that they may not be directed at us. They may not be. They might be from the memory. They might be from something hurting that person we're dealing with, and so on. So we should really ascertain or look for other clues before we go and jump into wrong conclusions and wrong action. So now we take it into practical, what things to do, what did we learn and how we can apply it. always use words in addition to facial expressions when expressing emotions. If I am dealing with somebody and I am reading negative emotions off her face or his face, like disgust or anger or something like that, apply the STA rule. First, stop. Don't go into judgment. Don't go into action. And then think, okay, maybe I'm reading the face wrong. The benefit of the doubt. And then ascertain verbally that that person is really expressing this emotion before I move into judgment and before I move into action. So the last one, if the person I'm interacting with starts to behave in a negative way, then I should apply the RME, which is remember my own facial expressions and think maybe he is misreading my face, and then try to diffuse the situation either by sharing my thoughts or saying, I'm tired or something like that, to diffuse it so that they don't continue in thinking the negative thought that they are thinking. Now these are the references, and they're really good books, and I really recommend going to that site and taking that quiz. Thank you.